The explosion inside the CEO office at Forrester Creations was supposed to be another victory for Steffy Forrester. Instead, it became the moment everything began to collapse. When the doors slammed shut behind him, Zende Forrester stood alone in the hallway, breathing hard, his fists trembling at his sides. The echoes of Steffy's words still rang inside his head like shattered glass. She had dismissed him again, not just as a designer, but as a man whose loyalty, talent, and ambition could be discarded whenever it suited the family hierarchy. In that moment, something inside Zende finally broke. For years, he had convinced himself that patience would eventually earn him respect. He tolerated being overlooked, watched opportunities handed to others, and swallowed every insult disguised as business decisions. But now the truth was impossible to ignore. No matter how much he sacrificed for Forrester, he would always remain expendable in Steffy's eyes. What hurt him most was not even the cancellation of hope for the future. It was the cold calculation behind it. Steffy had destroyed the line not because it lacked potential, but because eliminating it strengthened her own control. Zende suddenly understood that creativity no longer mattered inside the company bearing his family name. Survival did. Power did. Loyalty only mattered when it benefited the throne Steffy had built around herself. That realization poisoned him from the inside. For several sleepless nights, Zende wandered through empty design rooms long after everyone else had gone home. Fabric sketches covered the tables like abandoned dreams. He ran his fingers across the unfinished drawings of the Hope for the Future collection, remembering the excitement that once lived inside those designs. They were bold, modern, emotional, the kind of work that could redefine a fashion house. Yet Steffy had buried them without hesitation. To her, they were collateral damage in a war for authority. But to Zende, they were proof of everything he had lost. That was why the secret meeting happened. Hidden away from the Forrester mansion, far from the watchful eyes of Ridge and Steffy, Zende sat across from Katie, Logan, and Bill Spencer in a dimly lit private office overlooking the city. The atmosphere carried the tension of a criminal conspiracy rather than a business negotiation. Bill Spencer leaned back with the calm confidence of a man who could already smell blood in the water, while Katie studied Zende carefully, trying to determine whether this was desperation or destiny. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Zende made the choice that would ignite a war. He agreed to leave Forrester Creations and become the lead designer for the new Logan fashion brand. More devastating still, he promised to bring every unused Hope for the Future sketch with him, the very collection Steffy had arrogantly condemned to death. It was not merely a career move. It was betrayal at the deepest possible level. Zende was not just walking away from the family empire, he was taking part of its future with him. Bill Spencer immediately recognized the magnitude of what had just happened. This was bigger than revenge, bigger than rivalry. With Zende's talent and the emotional power behind the resurrected collection, the Logan brand suddenly had a weapon capable of striking directly at the heart of Forrester's dominance. Bill saw headlines before they even existed. He saw investors shifting loyalties. He saw customers turning their attention toward the scandal. Most of all, he saw Steffy Forrester losing control. And Bill Spencer loved nothing more than watching powerful people panic. The unveiling came faster than anyone expected. The fashion world gathered beneath blazing lights and roaring cameras as the Logan brand prepared to debut its first official collection. Rumors had already spread across the industry, but nobody truly believed them until the curtains opened. Then, the impossible happened. Zende Forrester walked onto the stage. The room erupted instantly. Reporters surged forward. Cameras flashed like lightning storms. Across giant digital screens appeared designs that everyone at Forrester thought had been buried forever. Hope for the future, reborn with sharper edges, richer colors, and a dangerous sense of rebellion woven into every stitch. Back at Forrester Creations, silence consumed the executive office as the live broadcast played across the monitors. Ridge Forrester stared at the screen in complete disbelief. The betrayal hit him harder than he wanted to admit. Zende was family. He had raised him inside the Forrester legacy, taught him to respect the company name, trusted that blood would ultimately matter more than ambition. Yet now Ridge was watching his own nephew stand proudly beneath the banner of a rival empire. Worse still, the designs were brilliant. Ridge could see it instantly, and that realization cut deeper than the betrayal itself. Steffy had not merely pushed Zende away, she had handed their competitors a masterpiece. Steffy, however, reacted very differently. Her shock transformed into fury within seconds. She could barely contain herself as she watched the audience applaud Zende's collection. Every cheer felt like a personal humiliation. Every camera flash was another reminder that she had underestimated him. Steffy had believed Zende lacked the courage to fight back. She thought loyalty and emotional attachment would keep him chained to Forrester no matter how badly he was treated. Instead, he had become the face of a public rebellion. And the most unbearable part was this: the collection was succeeding. Fashion critics immediately praised the line for its emotional authenticity and fearless modern energy. Buyers rushed to secure partnerships. Social media exploded with comparisons between the fresh, passionate Logan brand and what many were now calling the cold corporate machine of Forrester Creations. Overnight, Steffy's strategic decision began to look less like leadership and more like catastrophic arrogance. The battle quickly escalated beyond personal revenge. Investors grew nervous. Employees whispered in hallways. Designers inside Forrester quietly questioned whether the company was still capable of nurturing talent or if fear had become its true foundation. Ridge found himself trapped between defending his daughter and confronting the possibility that she had created this disaster herself. Meanwhile, Zende experienced a conflict of his own. Victory did not feel as clean as he imagined. Every success carried traces of grief beneath it. He had wanted recognition, not destruction. Even standing beside Katie and Bill during interviews, he could still feel the emotional weight of turning against the family that raised him. There were moments when guilt clawed at him unexpectedly, fleeting memories of Eric's guidance, Ridge's approval, old family celebrations before power poisoned everything. But then he would remember Steffy's expression in that office. The dismissal, the contempt, the certainty that he would always obey. And the guilt hardened back into resolve. What made the war truly dangerous was that neither side could retreat anymore. For Steffy, surrender would mean admitting she had failed as leader of Forrester Creations. Her pride would never allow that. For Zende, going back would mean accepting permanent humiliation. He would rather burn every bridge behind him than crawl back into the shadow he had finally escaped. So the conflict evolved into something far darker than a family dispute. This was now a battle between two empires built on wounded pride, ambition, and vengeance. Every runway became a battlefield. Every press conference carried hidden threats beneath polished smiles. The Forresters and Logans were no longer fighting over fashion trends or company shares. They were fighting for survival, legacy, and control of an industry that suddenly realized the impossible truth. The House of Forrester was no longer untouchable. And the man who may ultimately destroy it was one of their own. The fallout from Zende's betrayal spread through Los Angeles like a wildfire no one could contain. Inside Forrester Creations, the atmosphere had become unbearable. Executives argued behind closed doors, buyers hesitated to renew contracts, and whispers followed Steffy everywhere she walked. For the first time in years, people were questioning her leadership openly. And Steffy felt every second of it. She tried to fight back at first. She ordered emergency meetings, demanded aggressive counter-campaigns, and pushed the remaining design team to produce a collection capable of crushing the Logan brand before it could rise any further. But nothing worked. Every article in the fashion press focused on Zende. Every interview praised his creativity and courage. Worse still, former Forrester clients began quietly reaching out to Bill Spencer's new empire. The kingdom Steffy believed she controlled was beginning to crack beneath her feet. Late one evening, long after the office had emptied, Ridge found his daughter sitting alone inside the dark CEO office. The city lights reflected across the windows behind her, but Steffy barely noticed. She stared silently at the latest sales reports scattered across the desk, her eyes swollen from exhaustion. Ridge had never seen her look so defeated. "She's winning because you push too hard," he said quietly. Steffy's jaw tightened instantly. "Don't say her name." "I'm not talking about Hope," Ridge replied. "I'm talking about Zende." That name hit harder than she expected. For a moment, Steffy tried to maintain the cold composure she had worn for years, but the mask was finally beginning to fracture. Her voice trembled despite her efforts to steady it. "He humiliated me. He humiliated this family." Ridge looked at her carefully before answering. "No, Steffy." He exposed how hurt he's been for a very long time. The silence that followed was suffocating. Deep inside, Steffy knew her father was right. She remembered every moment she dismissed Zen's concerns, every time she weaponized authority against him, every occasion she assumed he would remain loyal no matter how far she pushed him aside. She told herself it was business. Leadership required difficult decisions. But now, sitting in the ruins of her certainty, she was finally forced to confront something she had avoided for years. She had treated Zende like he mattered less. That realization destroyed her pride piece by piece. The breaking point came days later during another disastrous board meeting. Investors openly questioned whether Steffy should remain CEO if the Logan brand continued stealing market share. One board member even suggested negotiating directly with Zende to repair relations before the damage became irreversible. Steffy felt the room closing around her. For the first time in her life, fear truly consumed her. Not fear of losing money. Fear of losing everything. Her company. Her legacy. Her father's faith. Her family's respect. And beneath all of that, buried deeper than she wanted to admit, was the terrifying possibility that she had also lost Zende forever. That night, Steffy made a decision no one would have believed possible. She went to see him alone. Rain poured across Los Angeles as Steffy arrived outside the Logan fashion headquarters. Reporters still crowded near the entrance, hoping to catch another glimpse of the man who had become fashion's newest sensation. Steffy lowered her head and slipped inside before anyone recognized her. When Zende entered the design studio and saw her standing there among the sketches and fabrics, he froze instantly. Neither of them spoke at first. The tension between them was overwhelming. Years of resentment, betrayal, disappointment, and unspoken pain hanging heavily in the air. "You shouldn't be here," Zende finally said coldly. Steffy tried to answer, but emotion caught in her throat. For days she had rehearsed this conversation in her mind, imagining herself strong, composed, controlled. But standing in front of him now, surrounded by the very dreams she had destroyed, all of that confidence collapsed. "I was wrong," she whispered. Zende looked at her with disbelief. "What?" Tears filled Steffy's eyes before she could stop them. "I said I was wrong." The words sounded almost painful coming from her. Zende turned away, struggling to process what he was hearing. This was not the Steffy Forrester he knew, not the ruthless CEO who crushed opponents without hesitation. This woman looked broken. But the damage between them ran too deep. "You didn't just cancel a line," Zende said quietly. "You destroyed everything I worked for. You made me feel invisible." Steffy shook her head desperately. I know, and I can't take it back." Her voice cracked completely then. For the first time, Zende saw genuine regret instead of pride. Steffy stepped closer, tears falling freely now. "I thought I was protecting the company. I thought being strong meant never backing down. But all I did was push away someone who believed in this family more than anyone." Zen's expression hardened again, though conflict flashed behind his eyes. "You only came because you're losing." The accusation struck like a knife, because part of it was true. Steffy lowered her gaze in shame. "Yes," she admitted softly. "At first, maybe that's why." But now her voice trembled violently. "Now I'm terrified that I destroyed something I can never fix." Then, before Zende could react, Steffy collapsed to her knees in front of him. The moment shattered every remaining piece of her pride. Tears streamed down her face as she looked up at him, emotionally devastated and completely vulnerable. The powerful CEO, who once controlled every room, now looked like a woman drowning beneath the consequences of her own choices. "Please," she whispered through sobs. "Please don't do this to the family. Don't destroy Forrester because of me." Zende stared at her in shock. He had imagined many versions of this confrontation.
Rage.
Threats. Manipulation. Even revenge. But never this. Never Steffy Forrester crying on the floor, begging him. The sight tore through him in ways he was unprepared for. Part of him wanted to walk away and let her suffer exactly as he had suffered. Another part remembered every shared memory, every moment they once trusted each other before ambition poisoned everything between them. Steffy reached for his hand with trembling fingers. "I know I hurt you," she cried. "But I'm asking you, please don't let this become the end of us." The room fell silent except for the sound of rain striking the windows. And for the first time since the war began, Zende